This video is sponsored by Brilliant. Cleaning data is one of the most common tasks data analysts and scientists have to do on a daily basis. And in this tutorial, we'll learn the techniques and good practices to follow when cleaning data using Python and Pandas. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to see the data frame that we're going to work with in this project. So the dataset is about Netflix movies and also Netflix TV shows. And here I'm going to read it. So first I import pandas as PD, and now to read this Netflix dataset, I'm gonna write pd.read_CSV, and inside parentheses I'm gonna write the name of the data frame, which is Netflix_titles. So this one. So now this is the name of my CSV file. So I read it. Now I run this, and here we get the data frame. I chose this Netflix dataset in purpose because it contains missing data and also is going to help us apply some data cleaning techniques with pandas. So let's start with the first column, and here we can see the ID, and IDs usually are unique. And here we can see the values, and then the next column here is the type, and here we can see movies and TV shows. Then we have the title of the movie or title of the TV show, the director, the cast, the country, the date, and the release year. And here we're going to use this column a lot to know whether an element of this dataset is actually a movie or not. Then we have the categories of the elements, and then the description of the movie or TV show. Okay, now I'm going to name this data frame, and I'm gonna name it df_Netflix. So this is my data frame. So now I run this, and now let's see the data types of the columns of this Netflix data frame. So to do this, we have to use an attribute that we've seen before in this course, and this is the dtypes attribute. So this attribute allows us to know the data types of each column. So here I'm going to write df_Netflix and then .dtypes. And now I press Ctrl Enter to know the data types of each column. And here we can see that the only integer column we have is the release_year. So this means that this is the only column that has numerical data. And that's kind of weird because here the duration and also the date added should have some kind of integer or date format. But here we can see that it has object as data type. So something weird is going on there, and we'll see that in detail in the following videos. But now let's check the shape of the data frame. And by shape, I mean the number of rows and the number of columns that the data frame has. And we can get this by using the shape attribute. So we only have to write df_Netflix, so the name of the data frame, followed by .shape. So this is the shape attribute. And now if I run this, we can see the number of rows, which is the first value here, and the number of columns, which is the second value here. So if we print the data frame df_Netflix, we will see that below there is the number of rows and also the number of columns, so we can verify that this is correct. Alright, before we start cleaning the dataset with Python, remember that to keep improving your Python skills, you need to learn to think like a programmer. And an app that helps me with this is Brilliant.org, which is the sponsor of this video. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. Brilliant is a learning platform that helps you build understanding from the ground up. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, which is proven to be more effective than just watching videos. Here's an example of an exercise I solved using Brilliant. Here, if I want proof why the angle sum of a triangle will always be equal to 180, I could use Brilliant to simply play with the actual triangle and find out that the fact holds no matter the shape of the triangle. This helps develop your analytical thinking, and
and it's more fun than reading a textbook. Brilliant has a section dedicated to Python. It will teach you key concepts such as loops, variables, nesting, conditionals, and allow you to start building programs on day one with a built-in drag-and-drop editor, and most importantly, develop your mind to think like a programmer, which is better than just memorizing programming concepts. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/thepycoach or click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and now let's go back to the video.
Alright, we're gonna see how to identify missing data. So first, let's have a look again at the Netflix data frame here. So here I write df_Netflix, and here we get the dataset. And here it's the dataset, and we can see that there are some NaN values. So this one. So this NaN represents null values. And this means that there is no value here, for example, for this cast in index 0, and also for this director in index 1. So there is no data. And what we can do here is to use the isNull method to recognize them, because here we can easily recognize them because it says NaN, but to check that in the thousands of rows that this data frame has is almost impossible. So we can do it easily with the isNull method. So now I'm going to show you how to do it here. So first we write df_Netflix, and now to find the null values we only have to write that is null. So here I write that is null, then I open parentheses, and if I run this, you will see that we get the same data frame, but in this case we get false and true values. So the true values are those NaN values, so null values, and the false values are non-null values. So here we can see that, for example, again, cast index 0, it's true. And this is true because before we saw that this was an ANN value, so a null value. And the same goes for director with index 1. It's the same, it's true because this one is a null value. So here we can recognize all the null values inside a column by using the isNull with the sum method. So here I write that sum. And now what this is going to do is to sum all the values that are true. So here, for example, here we got some true values. So if we apply this sum method, this is going to sum all the true values inside this director column. So here we have true, the first true value, and then again another true. So 1 plus 1, 2. Then 2 plus 1, in this case we have another true value. So 2 plus 1, 3. So far we have 3 null values. And then it will find true values that represent the null values we've seen before. And it's going to sum all of them. So in the end, we're going to get the total number of null values per column. So here, let's have a look. I'm going to run this one. And now we see that, for example, the ID column doesn't have any null values. However, the director column has 2,634 null values. And also the cast and country columns have some null values. And it's important to recognize how many null values a column has, because this tells us how our data set is structured. So if a dataset has many null values in a column, that means that some columns might be incomplete. So we should think about dropping those columns, so deleting those columns. And for this example, the director, cast, and counter columns are good candidates to be deleted. So here I'm going to show you a way to sort first these null values here, because here is sorted according to the original data frame. But now I want to sort these values ascending. So the columns that have the higher number of null values will be on top. So here I'm gonna use the sort values method for that. And here inside parentheses I write ascending, and now I set this equal to false. So now I run this, I get the column with the highest number of null values on top. So in this case is the director column. Okay, as we said before, these three columns are good candidates to be deleted, but still we don't have enough evidence or enough reasons to delete these three columns, because here we have 2000 null values, but maybe these 2000 null values represent a small portion of the total number of rows that the data frame has. So we have to verify the percentage that these null values represent from the total data frame. And to do so, we have to use the min method. So I'm going to show you how to do it here. But first, I'm going to copy the name of the data frame, and now I paste it here. So now I'm going to write the name of any column I want to evaluate. In this case, let's try with the director column. So here I put the name inside quotes, and now I'm going to use again the isNull method. So here, if I run this, we get the true and false values in this column or in this series. So here again, the true values represent null values. And now to get the percentage, we have to use the min method. So we write that min, and what this is going to do is to calculate the average number of true values in this series. So it's going to sum all the true values and then divide it by the total number of rows. So in this case, 8,806 rows. So if I run this, we get 0.29, and this represents that 29% of the director column are null values. So this is a good number of null values, and we have to analyze later if we want to delete or drop this column. But first, let's see the percentage of null values of each column. And to do that, we have to use a for loop. So here I write for, then I write column in df underscore Netflix dot column. So here I'm using the columns attribute, and now I'm going to show you how this works in case you forgot. So here I paste it, and this columns attribute should get all the columns that this data frame has. So if I run this, we get a list of all the columns. So from the ID to the description. So all the columns this data frame has. And now this is a list, so we can loop through it. So here in my for loop, I'm looping through this list. So here I'm saying for each column in this list of columns, do this. So execute this line of code. So instead of writing here the director column, we have to introduce the column variable here. So in this way, we're gonna iterate through all the columns that this Netflix data frame has. So we're gonna get the percentage of all these columns. So the percentage of null values. So here, now to show you this, I'm gonna here assign a name for this percentage. So I'm gonna name it percentage. And now I'm gonna print this one. So I write print, and now I want to show the percentage of each column. So here, print percentage. Now I run this, and now we get the numbers, and the column that has the highest percentage of null values is this one, with 29% of null values. But we don't know which column corresponds to this value because it doesn't say anything. So we have to print the column variable. So here I write column and then plus to concatenate these two variables. And now since this percentage variable is a number, we have first to convert this into a string. So we write here str, and now we convert this number or this integer into a string. So now I think everything is fine. So I'm going to run this one. And here we see the name of the column and the percentage. So I'm going to add a column in the middle so we can see clearly the name of the column and also the percentage. So here I open these quotes now the column symbol. So here I do this and now run, and now we can see clearly the name of the columns and also the percentages of null values. So here the column that has 29% of null values is the director column, as you can see here. So we can now even customize these numbers. So we can write here in percentage, multiply here with 100, and then round this number, and we want 2 decimals. So I'm gonna write 2 decimals here, comma, and here 2 decimals. So if I run this, we get the same values, but now in percentages and with 2 decimals. And that's it. In this video, we learn how to identify missing data. And in the next video, we're gonna decide whether these columns that have a good number of null values are gonna be deleted. Alright, in this video, we're gonna see how to deal with missing data. So in the previous video, we identified some columns that have a good number of null values. For example, this director column has 29% of null data. And here we're gonna decide whether we're gonna delete or drop those columns, or maybe if it's a better idea to drop rows. So to drop those null values inside those rows. So let's see what's the best solution for this case. So here I'm going to use 3 different methods, and these are the drop NA, and the isNull methods. Some of them we already seen in this course, but some of them we haven't seen so far. But don't worry, because I'm going to explain you how they work from scratch. So here first, let's say that we want to drop this director column because we consider it has a good amount of null data. So here, if we want to do that, we have to use the drop method, and we only have to write the name of the data frame, so df underscore Netflix, and then we have to write that drop, then we open parentheses, and inside we have to specify the name of the column we want to drop. So in this case is the director column because it has too much null data. So here I write director, and now here, as you might remember, we have to specify the access. So here we say access equal to 1, and we write equal to 1 because this is a column. So column is 1 and row is 0. So here we're saying drop this director column. So now it's ready and we can run this one. So I run, and now we get a copy of the data frame. In this case, this data frame doesn't have the director column. So we successfully deleted this director column. But here I'm not going to take this approach because the director column might have some important data that we might use later. So it's not a good approach to drop the whole column because it can contain some important data. So sometimes it's much better if you can get rid of the specific rows that contain that null data, and that's what we're gonna do right now. So here I'm gonna write df underscore Netflix, and now I'm gonna find which rows are null. So here I'm gonna write here director, so this is the director series, and now I use the isNull method. So here I'm gonna get the null values inside the director series, and what we're gonna do now is to filter this based on this condition. So here is my condition, so get the null values, and now I'm gonna filter this. So with this we get the data frame with null values, and if now I write that index, this index is my attribute that gets the index of this data frame. And in this case, this data frame contains only null values. So this means that we're gonna get the indexes that correspond to those null values. So here I'm gonna run this one. So I comment this out and I run. And as you can see here, I got here a list of indexes, and it says 1, 3, 4, and so on. And these numbers represent the indexes that have null values inside the director column. So now let me show you here in the real data frame df_Netflix. So now I run this one, and as you can see here in the director column, the null values are in row 1 or index 1, then row 3 or index 3, here we have NaN, and then also in index 4, NaN again. So we should get 1, 3, and 4 because those indexes contain null values inside the director column. So now let's verify if that's true. So here we got 1, 3, 4, and so on. So all these elements inside this list are indexes that correspond to null values inside the director column. So here I'm gonna name this as no_director, which means that the values inside this expression are null. So they don't have a director value. So no_director. And now I'm gonna drop these indexes because, as you might remember, these are a list of indexes that are right here. And now I'm gonna drop those indexes. So what I'm gonna do is write the name of the data frame as I did here. So actually I'm gonna copy this one. So I have this to edit. So here, instead of writing the name of the column director, I'm gonna write the variable no_director. So here I paste it, and now instead of saying x is equal to 1, I have to change this to x is equal to 0 because 0 represents rows or indexes. And here we have a list of indexes. So now everything is ready. And now let's run this one. I'm gonna comment this out and I run. And here we got this data frame. And as you can see here in the indexes, we have 0, but then we don't have 1 because we removed or we dropped that index. Then we have 2, and then we have 5, but 3 and 4 are not here because those rows contain null values inside the director column. So that's why we dropped it. And now we can easily verify how many null values are in the director column using the same method we used in the previous video. So here, what I can do is to write is null, and then parentheses, and then sum, and parentheses. So now let me show you here. I run this, and here I go to the director column, and as you can see here, it says 0, which means that this column right now doesn't have any null value. And this is because here we drop all the null indexes using the drop method and this no_director list. So now I'm gonna get rid of this, and here we have the data frame without null values in the director column. And that's it. I consider this a better method to deal with missing data. So I will add here an in place equal to true. So you can add this one so you save all the changes we made with the drop method and you update the values in the df_Netflix data frame. But I'm not gonna do that because I need these null values to make the following examples. So I'm not doing that only for the sake of this video. But you should do it if you want, because that's a better approach than dropping the whole column as we did with this line of code. So not this one, but we're gonna take this approach. So this one is much better. But in my case, I'm not going to add the in place parameter. So here I delete it. And now let's continue with the following example. So here I want to show you how to do the same thing. So how to drop rows, but now only with the isNull method. So here before we used the isNull method with the drop method to drop these rows, but now I'm going to use the isNull method with the not operator. So let me show you how to do it here. So here I have to write first the name of the data frame, which is df_Netflix, and then we open square brackets And actually, we're gonna do this filter is exactly the same as we did before. So I copy this one and I paste it here inside square brackets. So now, instead of getting the index as we did before, we're gonna use the not operator. So here, I'm gonna add parentheses. And outside parentheses, I'm gonna add the not operator. So this one. So here, inside parentheses, I'm saying I wanna get the null values inside the director column. But now, when we use the not operator, we're saying, hey, I don't want the null values, but I want the non-null values. So here, by using the not operator, we get the non-null values. And after this, we get the filter and we get the data frame with non-null values. So it's like we're dropping the null values in the rows. So it's like we were doing this part, but in this case, we're just doing it with the not operator. So if I run this one, let me show you what happens. So I comment this out and now I run. And here we can see that index 1 is not here, index 3 and 4 is not here. And now if I use the here that is null and then sum to get the number of null rows, we're gonna get that the director column doesn't have any null value. So now I'm gonna delete this one. And as you can see here, the is null with the not operator does a similar job as this is null with the drop method. Okay, finally, I'm gonna show you a third way to drop null values, but in this case, we're gonna use the dropna method. And this is the simplest method, and I'm gonna show you here. First, we write the name of the data frame, followed by the dropna method. So we open parentheses, and now we have to specify the column in which we want to analyze whether there are null values or not. So here, I write the name of the column. So in this case, it's gonna be the director column. And here, I'm gonna add these square brackets and also add a parameter called subset. So here I write subset equal to, and this is the column that I want to analyze. So we do this because that's the syntax of the dropna method. So we have to write a subset parameter, then equal to, and then open these square brackets. So if this director column has null values, we're gonna drop those null values by using this dropna method. So now let's check it out. I'm gonna comment this out and these two out. And now I run this, and here we can see that we don't have this one index and 3 and 4 are gone too. So now fast I verify the number of rows that are null values. So here is null sum. And here we can see again that the director column doesn't have any null values. And that's it. In this video, we learned different ways to remove a column or row with the dropna or is null method. And also we learned best practices to deal with missing data in pandas. In this video, we're gonna see how to deal with missing data by using the fillna method. Okay, instead of dropping rows and columns as we did in the previous video, we can deal with missing data by using the fillna method, and we can replace the null values by the mean or the median or the mode. And I'm going to show you how to do it now. So the first thing you have to do is to calculate either the mean, the median, or the mode of the column that we want to replace its null values. So here, let's say we want to evaluate the rating column. So this rating column has some null values. So we want to replace the null values inside this column for the median or the mean, for example. So what we have to do is to write df underscore Netflix, which is the name of the data frame, open square brackets, and here we write the name of the column. So we write rating. This is the column that we want to evaluate. So now to calculate the mode, let's use the mode in this example. So to calculate it, we have to write mode and then parentheses. So this is a method and it helps us calculate the mode of this rating column. So let's see what's the mode of this rating column. So here I run, and by the way, the mode is the most common value inside a group of elements. And in this case, this TV-MA is the most common value inside the rating column. So here we can use this value to replace the null values. And this practice that sometimes people use, because if this value is already common, is already popular, it's not going to affect the end result. There are already many values that have TV-MA. So if we replace the null values by the mode, at least it shouldn't affect so much the result. So here, what I'm gonna do now is to assign this value to the null values. And to do that, I'm gonna use the fillna method. So what I'm gonna do here is to, again, write the name of the column. And now I'm gonna write the fillna method. So I write dot fillna and then open parentheses. And here, the argument that we have to introduce is the mode. So this one. But now I wanna show you something before we do this fillna method. This mode value, as you can see here, is not a string, is not an integer, is some kind of array or some series. I mean, if you see the data type, it says object. So if we add this value as it is to the fillna method, we're gonna get an error because this fillna method expects some kind of integer or string. So what we have to do here is to convert this object, and actually I think this is a series because it has this format, the value and the index. So we have to convert this into a string so we can add it to this fillna method. So that's an argument, and then it's going to replace the null values here. So to do that, I'm going to use the join method, and this join method allows us to join strings, and in this case I'm going to use it to convert this value into a string. So what I'm gonna do here is to add parentheses and now add here dot join. And this join method is going to join all the elements inside parentheses. So here, since we only have one element, we're gonna get the same element but in string format. So the final format of this is gonna be a string. And now we only need to add the separator, so I only open quotes. So in this way, this value inside the join method is going to be the same as the one we introduced. So this TV-MA is going to remain the same, but now the data type will be a string. So now let's try this out. I'm going to assign this to a variable, which I'm going to name mode. So this is my mode variable. And now let's see the data type of this mode. So here, I'm going to use the type function. And now use parentheses, run this one, and as you can see, it says str, which means that this now is a string. And now we can add it to the fillna method. So we now copy this mode and we paste it here. So now we have the mode, and now we can replace these null values by the mode. So now I'm gonna add the in-place parameter, and I'm gonna set it to true to update the values in this df_Netflix data frame. So now, before I run this code, I want to show you fast how this rating column looks. So here, this is the data frame and the rating is this one. So let's see how many null values this rating column has. And to find the null values, we have to use the isNull method. But first we write the name of this column, and then we use isNull with parentheses. And now to filter this, I'm gonna insert this inside square bracket. So now I run, and now we get the rows that have null values and the rating column. So this one, these three, and this one. So we only have 4 rows with null values in the rating column. And what we're going to do is to replace these NaN values by the mode. So now I don't need this, and let's do this here. So now everything is ready and I'm gonna run this one. So here I ran, and now let's see how many null values this rating column has. So as you might remember, we only need to use the isNull and the min methods. So first I delete this. Now I write isNull parentheses and then that min with parentheses. So now I run this, and here we get the columns and also the null values here on the right. So now we look for the column named rating, and it's here, and we get 0. So it means that this column doesn't have any null values anymore. So we successfully replace the null values by the mode. Now I delete this, and by the way, you can use the mean or the median, but in this case I chose the mode because this rating column, I'm going to show you here, this rating column has text. So here all these values are text. So this is known as categorical data, and when we have categorical data we have to replace null values by the mode. But when we have numeric data, like the column for example here, the year, the release underscore year, that's numbers, so that's numeric data. There we have to replace null values by the mean or the median. So in this case, for example, let's say this rating column has numbers, and we will use either the mean or the median. But in this case, this one is categorical, so here we use the mode. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to replace null values by an arbitrary number. So sometimes instead of replacing null values by the mean or the median, we use an arbitrary number and we replace null values with this arbitrary number. Usually this number won't affect the final result, but it helps us work with the column as if all the values inside the column were non-null. And this is useful because when sometimes you have null values in a column with numeric data, you won't be able to do some operations because those null values won't allow you. So now I'm going to show you how to do this. And as usual, we write first the name of the column. In this case, I'm going to use a column with numeric data, and this one is going to be the duration. So here I write duration, and before we apply the fillna method, I'm going to show you how this one looks. So here we got this column, and you can see that it has a mix of numbers and text. So we can see that this column isn't numeric at all, but it has some numbers. And I'm going to add the number 0 to this column because in the next videos, we're going to use some operations to split this data so we get in one column only the numbers and in the other column only the text. And I'm going to show you how to do this, but in the next videos. But now I need the number 0 because if I have null data in this column, I won't be able to do this split. So that's why I'm going to replace null values by the number 0. So now I write here dot fillna open parentheses, and the first thing we have to write is the arbitrary number. So in this case 0, I want to add number 0, and now I just write in place equal to true, and that's it. With this we replace the null values by this number 0. So I run this one now. Okay, now I'm going to show you a parameter that allows us to fill null values backwards and forwards. And first we have to write this one again. Actually, I'm going to copy all of this, and now I'm going to paste it here. So now I'm going to delete this, what is inside. And now instead of using the mean, the median, an arbitrary number, or any other thing we've seen so far, we're going to use the forward or the backward non-null value to replace any null value. So to do that, I'm going to add the method parameter. So here, this method parameter has two options. So the first option that we're going to see is the backward option. So if I add this one, the null value will be replaced by the non-null value that follows it. So the one that is in the next position. So I'm going to show you here with an example. So I'm going to print the df underscore Netflix, And here we have the data frame, and let's find the director column. And here we see one null value. So if we apply the fillna method with the backward option, what we're gonna get is that this director, Julien Leclerc, will replace this null value. So it's gonna replace backwards. The non-null value, Julien Leclerc, will replace the null value backwards. But now, if we use the same method, but now in the second option, forward, so here I write it, what we're gonna get is that the first director here, Kirsten Johnson, is gonna replace this null value forward. So this non-null value will replace this null value forward. Okay, and now that this is clear, I'm gonna show you the true names of this method. So instead of writing backward, this one is called bfill, so backward fill, and this one is called ffill, so forward fill. And these are the names. And now I'm gonna apply this to the whole data frame. So not only to the director column, but to the whole data frame. So now I delete this one, and also I delete this one. So with this, all the columns will be affected by this bfill or ffill. So let's try first with the backward fill. So now I run this one, and we see that this director, Julien Leclerc, replaced this null value, or this former null value, because now it has the value of Julien Leclerc. And now let's try with the method ffill. So it's gonna be the forward fill, and now I run, and now it's different. So we see that this former null value is now Kirsten Johnson. So this director here replaced this former null value, and it was a forward fill. This is usually used when we have a sequence of values in a column. So for example, if we have the data of the weather every minute in a city, and for some reason we don't have a data of one specific minute, we can either forward fill or backward fill, because the weather shouldn't change so much in 1 minute. So in this case, it makes sense a lot to backward fill or forward fill. But in some other cases, it wouldn't make so much sense. So it depends on the data. So in some cases, maybe it's much better to fill with the median or the mode or the mean, or just drop the column or the row, as we've seen in the previous video. And that's it. In this video, we learned different ways to deal with missing data. Remember that each dataset is different, so you have to analyze your dataset and take the approach that fits best your data. Alright, in this video, we're going to learn how to extract data from a column, and in this case, we're going to extract data from the duration column using the split and extract methods. So first, I'm going to select the duration column, so I write the name of the data frame, df_Netflix, and then the name of the column, so duration. Now I run this, and now we can see that this data has the duration of movies and TV shows. So here we can see that durations of movies is in minutes, but the duration of TV shows is in seasons. So we have 2 seasons and 3 seasons and so on. So here we're gonna analyze only the movies, because we only want to compare in the following videos movies with minutes. So our unit of measure will be minutes, and we only need movies for this purpose. So what we're gonna do now is to filter out TV shows. So we do this with the methods we learned in previous videos. So we write first df_Netflix, then we write here the type of this show. So if it's a movie, it's gonna be in this data frame, but if it's TV show, it's not gonna be in this data frame. So we're gonna filter out TV shows. So here I write the name of this column, which is type. So here type, then equal to, and now I write only movie. So here copy and paste movie. So now we only want movie, and this is our condition, and here we put it inside square brackets. And now I'm gonna set this as a new data frame, and I'm gonna name it df_movie. So this is my new data frame. And now I'm gonna choose this data frame to make the selection. So now I paste this, and now let's select this duration column from the df movie data frame. So now I run this, and as you can see here, we only get the duration of movies, and here we got the unit of measure, which is minutes. And this is great because now we can make a better comparison because all of them are in minutes. But this still isn't complete because here we have numbers and text. So to compare, we only need numbers because we compare one number with another number. But we cannot say that one element is greater or less than other with text. So here we have to extract only the numbers. And this is what we're going to do using the split and the struct methods. So first, let's have a look at the split method. And to use the split method, we have first to get access to the str attribute. So as you might remember, this str stands for string, and this helps to work with string data inside this column. Okay, now that we have the string of this duration column, because we use the str attribute, we now can use the split method. So I write dot split, and by default the split method splits this data every time it encounters a blank space. So here between the number and the text we have a blank space. So every time it finds a blank space, it's going to split this whole text or this data. So now I'm going to run this one and you're going to see the results. So here we get a list, and inside this list we have all the elements that were split. So here we see that we have the numbers on the left and we have the text on the right. So here the text is minutes, and this is not so relevant, so we're going to select only the numbers, so the first element in the list. And one parameter that is used frequently in this split method is the expand parameter. So I write it here, and this parameter allows us to expand this list into columns. So if we have here two elements, if we write here expand equal to true, we're going to get two columns, and each column will contain an element of this list. So column number 1 will contain only the numbers, and column number 2 will contain only this text that says minutes. So here I run this, and as you can see, we have this data frame with 0 and 1 as columns, and here in the column 0 it says 90, 91 and only numbers, and here in the column 1 it only says minute. And that's what we wanted. Now we can select only the 0 column by using square brackets and writing the name of the column. So now I write 0, and now if I run this, we get only the column with the numbers. So here we have the duration in minutes, but now only the numbers. Great, so far so good. But here there is a little detail. We see that all the data here are numbers, but here below we see that the data type here in this dType attribute is object. And this is a bit weird because all of the data that we see here are numbers. So we have to convert this data in this series into integers. So what we have to do here is to use the asType method. So we write asType, and this method allows us to convert from one data type to another. So here inside I write int, and this stands for integer. So now I'm going to convert this data, which is object, into an integer. So now I run this and let's see the results. And I got an error, so let's see what happened. Now I scroll down and I'm going to read the error, and it says cannot convert float NaN to integer. So this means that there are null values inside this column. So that's why it cannot convert to integer. And that's a bit weird because in the previous videos, we replaced the null values inside this duration column by an arbitrary number. And if I'm not wrong, that number was 0. Yeah, it's here. So we replaced all the null values inside the duration column by the number 0 here. And then we updated with this in place equal to true. So what's going on? So there is a simple explanation to this. Here, when we use the fillna method to replace null values inside the duration column by this 0 number, we set this 0 number, which is an integer. But here below, you can see that here when we call this column, this duration column, we're getting access to the string data type inside this column. And here there is a conflict because here we're expecting strings, but here we added integers. So this is why when we use the split method here, it doesn't find any string when we get to the rows that have these 0 values. So when it gets to those rows, it will detect some null values. So here, when it makes the split, we get null values as a result too. So that's why when we use the asType method here to convert this data into integers, we get this error because it says that there are null values, and of course we cannot convert null values into integers. So here a simple solution is just to modify here what we added. So instead of adding this 0 as integer, we add this 0 as a string. And to do that, we only have to add these quotes, and that's it. Now this 0 is a string. And when we get access to this string attribute, this time we're gonna get the 0 because now 0 is a string. And then we're gonna split this successfully. So now let's try this out. I'm gonna update this change, and to do that, I'm gonna click in this option that says cell, and then click on the option that says run all above. And I want to do this because I want to start from scratch so all the changes are properly executed. So now I click on run all above. Okay, after running all the cells above, I'm going to run this cell. So before I run the cells from the beginning to this one. So now I'm going to run this one to update these changes too. So I run this. And now we should get this 0 integer instead of the null values. So now I scroll down, and now let's run this code and let's see if everything is fine now. So now I run, and as you can see here, I don't get any error. So now we got this series, and now this data type is integer. So everything is fine now. Okay, in the following videos, we're gonna use this column. So I'm gonna give it a name. So here I'm gonna write df_movie, and now I'm gonna give it a name. So I'm gonna name it minute. And probably if we assign it this way, we're gonna get a warning message, and it's gonna be fine. So I'm gonna show you here. Here you see that we got this setting with copy warning, and warnings are not errors. They just let us know that something is going on and that we should check it out, but it doesn't mean that we did something wrong. It's just a warning. So you can even turn off these warnings, but I don't recommend you because sometimes they are really useful. By the way, we could avoid this warning by using the assign method, but in this case I wanted to simplify this and make this simple assignment, and it's fine. We don't have to worry about the warning. So now let's continue, and I'm going to show you how this data frame looks. So here I print this df_movie, and now the last column should be this minute column that you see here, and now we only have numeric data inside this column. So it's great. Now if we check the data type, we see that the minute column is integer. So it's great. That's what we wanted. So as I said before, we're going to use this minute column to do some analysis in the following videos. But now I want to continue with the split method because it has some other parameters that could be really useful when working with data. So now in this case, let's work with a different column. So now let's work with this date_added column. And this date_added column has some patterns. As you can see here, it has the name of the month, then it has the number of the day and the year. So here we could split this date by the comma. So here, if I write df_movie, and then we write the name of the column here, and then .str to get to the string data, and now that split, we can use a separator. So here before we didn't add a separator because we wanted to separate by the default blank space. But here we want to separate by a comma. So we write here split, and now I write comma inside these quotes. So if we do this, let's see what happens. So now I run, and as you can see here, we got a list, and inside the list we have two elements, and the two elements were separated by the comma. So we have the year here, and we have the month and the day. And we can even add the expand parameter to create two columns here. So I write expand equal to true, and now we see that we have two columns. And now if I select column number 1, we get only the years. Great. Now I'm going to show you how the extract method works. And this is a similar method, but it has some differences. So here I'm gonna delete this. And now to use the extract method, first we have to get access to the string. So here we write .str, and after this we write extract. So here extract, then parentheses, and inside we have to write the element that we want to extract. So for example, if you want to extract only the commas, you have to write quotes and then write the comma. And here the only thing that you have to add is parentheses, because when we use the extract method, we have to add capture groups, and the capture groups are represented with parentheses. So here I add parentheses, and now we can extract only the commas. So here you can see that only the commas were extracted. But the extract method is really powerful when we use it with regular expressions. If you never heard of regular expressions, they are expressions that help us extract data from a text based on some patterns. So here I'm going to show you a pattern that extracts only the years. And the years only has 4 digits, right? So we can write the digit symbol that is represented by this backslash and the D. So this in regular expression represents the digit symbol. So now, if we want 4-digit symbol like years have, we have to add these curly braces and write the number 4. And this in regular expression means that we want 4 digits together. And that's what the years represent, because the years are 4 numbers that are together. So I'm going to show you here, and here we have it again. A year is made of 4 numbers that are together. And this is different from the day, because a day has only 2 numbers. So here I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get these 4 digits together that represent the year, and before I run this code, I'm gonna add these parentheses, because as I told you before, when we use the extract method, we need to capture groups with parentheses. So now I run this, and here I got a column with only the years. So 2021, 2016, 2019, and so on. And we got here this because we use this regular expression that represents 4 numbers together. And by the way, you can even use regular expressions in this split method. You only have to add it here inside quotes. And that's it. In this video, we learned how to extract data using the split and extract methods. Remember that in the following videos, we're going to use this minute column that we created in this video to identify outliers.